Who is this guy? Are we going to stand here and take it? Are you guys going to stand there and listen to this? How long have you been doing it? 40 days? You've been listening to this for 40 days? And you've done nothing? Is no one going to do anything? Is no one going to stand up to this guy? And we don't belong to ourselves. We belong to our God. And so when you mess with his possession, you're messing with him. You mess with us, you're messing with his family. And you may strike us down, but I tell you what, there is coming a day of reckoning, and on that day, you better hope that you're on the right side. Because he's going to have something to say about you coming after us. We are trying to help you. And what's more, we are willing to suffer in order to help you. We are willing to suffer by speaking truth and being persecuted and being harassed and being made fun of, or whatever it costs, in order to try and help you. We will pour ourselves out in sacrifice to the truth in order to help you. Well, what about David? What about David? Who is he in all of this? Let's have a look at verse 12, chapter 17, verse 12. Now David was the son of the Ephrathite named Jesse, who was from Bethlehem. Town of Bethlehem, recognizable to anybody? You heard of that before? Just a thought. It's a backwater town. Yeah, it is. Jesse had 8 sons, and in Saul's time he was very old. Jesse's 3 oldest sons had followed Saul to the war. Firstborn Eliab, second Aminadab, third Shema. David was the youngest. The 3 oldest had followed Saul, but David went back and forth from Saul to tend his father's sheep. Who is David in all of this? David's a nobody. David's a nobody. He's the youngest of his father's 8 sons. He's the one that's regarded as the least of them. And that's what's going on in the chapter previous, where as Samuel goes to, at the request of God, to go and anoint a new king, he goes to Jesse and says, bring out your sons. And so Jesse does what any father of his day would do. He brings out the oldest first. And he parades his sons before Samuel. The oldest, the strongest, the tallest. David is the least of his sons. He's the youngest. He's the least impressive. Good, tall, handsome, strong looking, but young. He's a tender of sheep. He's a shepherd. He's a shepherd. He's a good shepherd. He's a good shepherd from the town of Bethlehem. Who loves his sheep and loves serving his dad. So what happens next? Jesse said to his son, take this ephah of roasted grain and these 10 loaves of bread for your brothers and hurry to their camp. Take along these 10 cheeses to the commander of the unit. See how your brothers are and bring back some assurance from them. They are with Saul and all the men of Israel in the valley of Elah fighting against the Philistines. Jesse sends David on his behalf to his brothers. Jesse, the father, sends his beloved son on a mission to his brothers. David leaves his place, a place of comfort, a place of security, a place of rest, and he goes to the place where the battle is being fought to represent his father to his brothers. He goes where the battle is being played out. He goes to a place of danger to represent his father to his brothers. Jump ahead with me to Hebrews chapter 2. In verse 12 it says, this is speaking of Jesus, he says, I will declare your name to my brothers. In the assembly I will sing your praises. Jesus leaves the Father, the Son of God, who dwells in eternity with the Father, leaves his Father's house and goes into a far country where there is a battle being fought. And he goes into that far country, the Son of God, to represent his Father and to take a message to his brothers. Verse 26 of 1 Samuel 17, David asked those standing near him. He gets to the place where the battle is being fought. He takes his bread and cheese and all that stuff, and he leaves it with the people. He meets with his brothers, and he goes to see what's happening. And he asks those standing near him, what will be done for the man who kills this Philistine and removes this disgrace from Israel? And I love this statement. He says this, who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? Who is this clown? Who does he think he is? This 9-foot giant. Like we're supposed to be impressed by him. 9-foot giant with a ridiculously big sword and javelin. So big someone else is carrying it for him. Who is this guy? Are we going to stand here and take it? Are you guys going to stand there and listen to this? How long have you been doing it? 40 days? You've been listening to this for 40 days? And you've done nothing? Is no one going to do anything? Is no one going to stand up to this guy? I love the spirit of David. David he is all in, boots and all. I am having none of this. I'm embarrassed for you lot. You lot have been standing here for 40 days listening to this muppet wandering up and down, beating his chest like some sort of King Kong like gorilla. And you guys have been sitting here listening to it. Why haven't you done anything? Are you just going to take it? I love David's words in verse 32. Let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine. Let no one lose heart because of this Philistine, this giant 9-foot something man. Don't be afraid of him. Remember last week we were talking about Joshua and one of the pervading messages of the book of Joshua. Be strong and of good courage, for the Lord your God fights for you. Why are you afraid of this flippin' giant? What are you doing? Yeah, he's big. God is bigger. Yeah, he's strong. God is stronger. Are you going to have to fight him? Are you going to have to go out there and pick up your sword and do all the fighting first? No, God's going to do the fighting for you. So get out there and fight. Get out there and do it. Be strong. Don't let your heart lose. Don't fail in your heart because of this guy. Who is he? Some giant Philistine. Unbelievable. The fact of the matter is, I pray that the church would have more of that spirit. I really wish that the church, I'm not meaning us specifically, I'm meaning church capital C, worldwide, particularly in the West. I wish we'd have more of that spirit. Who do these guys think they are? Are you going to take that? Are you going to take that lying down? Are we going to cower here in fear behind the holy walls? And well, Jesus was nice to people. We ought to be nice to people as well. Jesus was pretty rough, actually, with a few people. He got stuck into some. And yes, we are called to love our enemies. We're not called to be doormats. And we're not called to just shut your mouth and say nothing and have no response to the jibes and no response to the attacks and no response. And we're just to be voiceless. And you know what? There's something about the church in New Zealand that this is particularly true of. The church in this country is gutless, honestly. And it runs deep into the culture of New Zealand. It runs deep into New Zealand culture. I'm not a Kiwi, so I kind of, I'm not in this bracket. But Kiwis are, man, they're just so risk averse and so averse to anything that looks like confrontation. Oh, no, we can't have any confrontation, but we won't want you sticking your head above the parapet either because we'll chop your head off. We don't like you tall poppies. We don't like people who rock the boat. We don't like people who get out there and actually try and make change. We don't like people who get out there and actually, stand up for stuff. We just want to hide behind the wall and tell each other it's all right and console each other. It runs deep in New Zealand culture. It runs really deep. We will not have confrontation. We are afraid of speaking up into the situation, and it runs into the church. But we need more Davids. Going, are we really going to take that? Are we really going to take that? Now, it doesn't mean to say we have to grab a sword and a shield or a spear or a gun or a bomb or a knife or a sling or a stone. It doesn't mean that. We can be strong and we can speak truth and we can stand for stuff without getting riled, without getting hostile, and we can just speak it like it is, in truth and in love, and just say, no, you may come against the armies of the living God, sure, but there will be a price, because you don't answer to us, you're going to answer to Him. And we don't belong to ourselves, we belong to our God. And so when you mess with His possession, you're messing with Him. You mess with us, you're messing with His family. And you may strike us down, but I tell you what, there is coming a day of reckoning, and on that day, you better hope that you're on the right side, because He's going to have something to say about you coming after us. And worse than that, or at least alongside that, you're actually damaging yourself by doing so. You are working against your own best interests by fighting against us. We are trying to help you. And what's more, we are willing to suffer in order to help you. We are willing to suffer by speaking truth and being persecuted and being harassed and being made fun of, or whatever it costs, in order to try and help you. We will pour ourselves out in sacrifice to the truth in order to help you see the truth of who God is, and actually come into a place where your lives are going to be better off because you're in connection with the real, true, living God who presides over all history, who's the King of all creation, the sovereign living God, and as a result, reality as it actually stands, because right now, you are living a life that is splintered from reality, and you're living a life that is damaging yourself and your culture, and we are trying to help because we love you, but you are damaging yourselves, and you want to attack us, fine. That's okay. You can take your best shot, because our hope is not in this world and our hope is not in our stuff. We believe in a God who presides over all history, and you can take us and you may even kill us. But you know what? There is coming a day when I will rise from that grave. I will stand in His presence. I will see Him face to face. My God will stand on this earth and He will judge. So repent. The day of the Lord is near. When was the last time you heard a message like that? You hear that in the Christian church in New Zealand? Does he? You'd never know, because you never get to hear Brian Tamaki anywhere. Deafening silence on all the radio waves. But it's true. It's true. But the vast majority of the church in this country just cowers in fear as the giant marches back and forth, defying the armies of the living God. It's a spiritual battle, people. It's a spiritual battle. It's a spiritual battle that's already been won. We believe in a victorious King, the Lord Jesus. The enemy is a defeated foe who rages on the earth, for He knows His time is short. Yeah, He causes all kinds of havoc. But we know the end of the story. We've read to the end of the book. Or at least I hope we have. And we see that the Lord returns triumphant. And justice will prevail. I wish there were more Davids in the church in New Zealand. Let not your heart fail because of this guy. What's the source of David's confidence? Look at verse 37. The Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hand of this Philistine. David knows. David knows that he ain't fighting the fight alone. There's God that's doing the fighting. He's just running up behind. He's running in behind. The Lord is on the offensive. The Lord is moving forward. The Lord is doing the fighting. The Lord is going to engage the enemy, and he's just coming in behind. David is well aware of it. Be strong and of good courage. The Lord your God fights for you. Verse 45, David said to the Philistine, you come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you. Little pipsqueak David of no significance whatsoever. He's got eight brothers. Well, he's one of 8 sons, and he's the least and the youngest. And this giant looks at him and says, "Look, am I a dog that you'd send this kid with some sticks to fight me? Is that all you got?" And David, the little pipsqueak, looks up at him and says, "Ha! You think you're tough. You think you're big. You think you're strong. You think you're all that. Well, I tell you, you come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty. You may be mighty amongst men, but he is the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied." David is not strong and confident in himself. His courage is not in his own ability, in his own strength, in his own giftedness as a warrior, or in his training as a soldier. David's confidence and his courage is solely grounded and founded on his belief that the Lord is almighty and that the Lord will fight for him. This day, how's this? This day, this day, the Lord will deliver you into my hands, and I will strike you down and cut off your head. Little pipsqueak David. Might need a ladder to get up there, but boy, am I coming. And the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel. David's confidence is in the Lord Almighty. This battle is not between two armies. The battle is primarily a spiritual battle to decide, to declare, to make evident and known that there is in fact a God in Israel, and that the God of Israel, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the God of Moses and Aaron, the God of Joshua and Caleb, the God of David, will have his way. He is the Lord Almighty, the sovereign King of all creation. And you can't come against him without there being consequences. All those who try merely damage themselves in the process. I know this because I spent so much of my life directly opposed to him. I didn't know it for a lot of that time, but I was. I was living my life in opposition to him. And then when I got into my 20s, I decided that I wasn't going to believe in this God, and I was going to run in precisely the opposite direction and find out just how far the logic of my consequences led me. And so, I took up that banner, I jumped on my mighty steed, and I rode headlong into the dark abyss of hell to see just how far that hole went. I opposed him. I was his enemy. I directly stood and defied him. I felt the consequences in my life. I was railing against him, but I wasn't damaging him. I was only damaging myself in the process. I thought I was raging against him. I thought I was waging a war against him. I was really only waging a war against myself. And I was fighting a losing battle. I know this to be true. When you tilt the spear at the true and living God, you may think you are warring against him, but you are only warring against yourself, and you will inevitably end up damaged as a result. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that.